once again the 12th class, same topic, human reproduction, same topic, the female reproductive organ. Today we are going to discuss about the ovary, that is the T.S.Ovary, transverse section of ovary. As you know that ovary, which is present outside the uterus, some important ligaments, that is called the mesentery, joins the ovary with the fallopian tube and the uterus. Now what is the function performed inside the ovary, that we have to study it about in the TS of the ovary. Okay. This is the ovary. When we cut transversely the ovary, it is composed of various small cells. Actually, primary follicles are present here. Primary follicles are present here. As we know that one primary follicle is developed to form the primary oocyte. Only one primary follicle developed in each month. Before that, the outside of the ovary, this part is called the cortex. This is the reticular connective tissue. This side is called the cortex. Cortex, which is formed by the reticulate connective tissue. Reticulate connective tissue. Connective tissue. Inside this cortex, medulla is present. Okay, actually, ovary is composed of two layers. It is composed of outer cortex made up of reticulate connective tissue and inner medulla Two layers are present here when we see the transverse section of the ovary. The medulla, it is a areolar connective tissue. Medulla, which is areolar connective tissue. Okay, these two tissues form the outer structure of the ovary. Inside this medulla, primary follicles are present. These are the primary follicles. Okay, primary follicles is present in the ovary. Primary follicles are present in ovary, and we know that in each month only one primary follicle developed to form the oocyte. Each month one primary follicle developed to form secondary oocyte. Each month only one primary follicle develop to form secondary oocyte. Each month only one primary follicle developed to form the secondary oocyte. This is secondary oocyte covered with primary follicles. One primary follicle developed to form secondary oocyte. Okay. In each month, only one is developed to form secondary oocyte. Further, it develops more, enlarges its size, gets converted into one structure that is called Graphene Follicle. So one structure is developed here that is called the Graphene Follicle. It is named by the person who invented this. This is called the Graphene Follicle, and this is the secondary. This complete structure is called the Graphene Follicle, and this is the secondary oocyte. Okay, now what is the structure of Graphene Follicle? You must see here. Graphene Follicle. It is composed of two separate zones. This is secondary oocyte. Okay, this is secondary oocyte. Which is covered with a layer and this complete structure is called Graphene Follicle. This complete structure is called Graphene Follicle. Invented by a person called Graphene, so if we call it the right, the spelling according to that, Graphene Follicle. The Graphene Follicle, the many layer of the follicle cells are there. It has many layer of the follicle cell. Okay, secondary oocyte, then Graphene Follicle is developed, and this Graphene Follicle has many layers, developed with many layers of follicle cells. So this is the Graphene Follicle. Many layers of the follicle cell is present. The first cells which is composed here, it is called the discus proligenus. These are called the discus proligenus. This is the group of the bunch of the cell present there, that is called the discus proligenus. Okay, this part is called the antrum. Antrum is not the emptied part, it is not the wicked part, it is actually the cavity which is filled with the liquid. The viscous liquid is present, and from where this viscous liquid is formed? It is formed by this follicle layer. This follicle layer forms some viscous liquid which is filled in the part that is called the antrum. The antrum is the part which conduct the various viscous liquid. Okay, viscous liquid is present in this part. This is called the atrium. The outer layer of the Graphene Follicle is actually called membrane granulosa. This is called membrane granulosa. And membrane granulosa is made up of two layers. This is called external theca and this is called internal theca. External theca and internal theca. What happened actually? This discus proligenus present in the Graphene Follicle, discus proligenus, this part is actually called, this part is called the germ hill. Discus proligenus present in Graphene follicle called germ hill. It is actually the place from where the female oocyte is released out. Antrum we know. Antrum is not the vacant part. It is not the this emptied part. It is actually atrium is cavity. It is actually the cavity which is clearly visible when we have studied the transverse section of the ovary. This antrum is clearly visible. Antrum is filled with it is a cavity, and it is filled with viscous liquid. And from where this liquid comes? This liquid is released by or secreted by follicular cells. Okay, so this is about the Graphene follicle. Graphene follicle is very much important. Why it is important? Because from here the secondary oocyte is released. The Graphene follicle rupture at the place called the germ hill, and this secondary oocyte is released out from here. Okay, so what happened next? This Graphene follicle gets open or it's ruptured, and when the Graphene follicle rupture, the secondary oocyte is released from this Graphene follicle. Look at here. This is the ruptured part of the Graphene follicle. And this is the secondary oocyte. The Graphene follicle rupture and secondary oocyte is released. Okay, this is the secondary oocyte. So secondary oocyte is released when Graphene follicle is ruptured. When this Graphene follicle is ruptured, secondary oocyte is released when Graphene follicle ruptured, and the process is called ovulation. The process is called ovulation. Ovulation, it means the releasing of the secondary oocyte. That is called the ovulation. So what happened? The Graphene follicle rupture, and because of the rupturing of the Graphene follicle, the secondary oocyte is released, and this process is called the ovulation. Now what happened with the Graphene follicle? Graphene follicle start degenerating. Okay, one more important thing, this process occurs. The process occurs, as we know that the duration of the menstruation cycle is from 28 to 30 days each month. The 14th day of the menstruation cycle, the ovulation occurs. The process of ovulation occurred at 14th day of menstruation. Okay, 14th day of the menstruation, the process of ovulation occurs. After ovulation, what happened? This Graphene follicle start degenerating in ovary itself. This ruptured Graphene follicle is called corpus hemorrhagium. This is called corpus hemorrhagium, or this hemorrhagium is also called hemorrhagia. or it is also called hemorrhagia. Okay. Then what happened? This Graphene follicle furthermore degenerating process is going on, and this is called the corpus luteum. This is called corpus luteum. Corpus luteum is important part because it is act as an endocrine gland. It acts as a endocrine gland, and it is responsible for the formation of progesterone. Progesterone is female reproductive organ. So this is important for the formation of progesterone. The corpus luteum. After that, this graphene follicle degenerate. Okay, this is degenerate and release out from the body. This graphene follicle degenerate, and this is called the corpus albicus. Corpus albicus. Okay, so what happened after the rupturing of the graphene follicle? Graphene follicle degenerate in 3 steps. First is called the corpus hemorrhagium, second is called the corpus luteum, and then corpus albicus. And this corpus luteum is act as an endocrine gland, and it is responsible for the formation of the female hormone that is called progesterone. The female hormone is released here. So what happened here next? Graphene follicle degenerated by formation of 3 part, that is called the corpus hemorrhagia, then corpus luteum, and last is the corpus albicus. This corpus luteum acts as endocrine gland, and responsible for formation of progesterone. And what is progesterone? It is the female sex hormone. This is all about the transverse section of the ovary.